Hello, everybody, and thanks for logging into this call. It's nice to see faces and actually put some faces to some names that I see the names, but I don't know the faces. So welcome to my office. This is at Place of Hope at Winnipeg Inner City Missions, and so we have, I'm just going to do a little overview of how we're set up here and the programs before I talk about how the programs have been impacted and what we've been doing. We have 3 buildings: the Place of Hope, which is where we run the First Steps to Employment project, and the congregation also meets here on Sunday afternoons. And we have 19 suites, and we have 17 residents, and I'll talk more about them in a minute. And then we also have Flora House, which is located 4 or 5 kilometers from here, a little further north in the Winnipeg North End. We're just at the north end of the downtown area of Winnipeg in terms of Place of Hope. So at Flora House, that's where we run the after school program. This year we changed that program a bit, and we were doing a lunch program for the children and after as well. And then behind Place of Hope, where I am now, we have the Kenora Fellowship Centre, which is where the thrift store runs, and the Learn and Play program. So those are the 3 buildings, and one of the first things that started happening is we have residents in this building. When the pandemic was inching closer and closer and closer, and things were starting to be a little bit more serious here, we put a sign up to say that we really didn't want people to bring guests into Place of Hope. They're allowed 5 overnight visits a month, and they can bring guests. It's their home. So we put the sign up, and we did have one person who was kind of skeptical of the whole thing, and he took great offense to the fact that the sign was put up. So we changed the sign and said, please use your discretion. Now, just down the street from us is Salem Mission. So those of you that are in Winnipeg know that name. And there's the Salvation Army, and there's the Red Road Lodge. There are a lot of places that are providing food and shelter, and a lot of those people do walk along here, and a lot of them are friends, and some of our people go and have a meal at those places as well. So it became a bit of a really hard to try to tell people who to bring in and who not, and so we just tried to kind of keep it down a little bit because of the whole sanitation issues. So then we had an issue with, as everybody, the stores and everything is, okay, people are coming in and out of our doors, like just the residents, they're going out, they're going to work, they're going out to be with their friends, and then they're coming in, and we need to clean everything. So we got some bottles of sanitizer, and one of the residents is sanitizing every day. So one of the things that I was able to do is sort of enlist a few people that had specific jobs to help us keep the place up. And I guess I should backtrack a little bit to say that one of the first things that I really did have to deal with was staff fears. There are a couple of staff that were very fearful, and what everybody has here is a fairly high level of anxiety that can be provoked very easily. And so it was important even with the staff to try to keep people calm try to keep people focused on facts and not just everything that they were hearing. If you recall back to those beginning days, there was just so much information coming from everywhere that it was exhausting and overwhelming. And so trying to keep people and um, on a speed that was helpful. And as it turned out, once things started to really close down, all the staff except for me remained at home. And that was partly for health reasons, partly for high stress levels, partly for childcare because schools closed. And so it's all worked out very well. We had a big board and staff meeting, so Reverend Margaret was there as well as the other Wycombe staff, and we all discussed some of the closure operations that we would undertake, and had everybody on board. And I think that was really important. It was, for me, it was a very good meeting. I thought we were all really on the same page, and it was very, very helpful. Then there was the decisions of closing the program. So we had to close Flora House, and we had to close the Learn and Play program. We had to close the congregation, and we had to close the thrift store. So we had the residents still here though, because this is their home. This is where they live. And many of them do not have a lot of external supports. We are their supports. We are the people closest to them right now. So so that closure down, people really missed Crystal and Susan, and they really need to have contact. So Crystal was assigned to contact all the residents on a very, very regular basis. The coordinator of the Learn and Play program actually had to be off work for a couple of weeks. And so then when he came back, the assistant at Flora House really helped with contacting all the Flora House kids and just keeping in touch. We wanted to keep in touch with people, because it's a very difficult time, and everybody, really anxiousness, anxiety, true, honest to goodness anxiety was very, very evident in so many people. Then it was sort of a matter of, okay, like, how are we going to respond? We've got buildings to take care of, and we've got people to take care of. The buildings are a concern because we are in a very high violent neighborhood, and so it's not uncommon for there to be violence to occur on the cars. We actually had one of the residents' cars was stolen off the parking lot. You know, just things happen that just aren't very fun. So we also had information from the insurance companies that if buildings were not occupied, that we had to do certain things. So our Flora House staff did sort of lock down Flora House. They had to turn off everything, drain the water tank, drain the, you know, really close that place up. But also they have to go there every 3 days minimum to make sure that it's okay. So it's just kind of getting all these systems in order. I did happen just before the COVID thing started, I had an interview with CBC Radio. In retrospect, that was really helpful. And when this all kind of broke loose, I had a second interview with CBC Radio, and that's been helpful to us in terms of community members knowing more about Winnipeg Inner City Missions, but also in terms of just getting those anonymous drop-offs of food have been really great. And I'm going to suggest something people can do later, but there is something else that somebody did that I'll tell you about in a couple minutes. Then we started moving into, we can provide food to people, but we are not normally a food-based organization. So getting everything in order for us to be able to handle food, to serve food, to keep the food cold, keep the food frozen. So we had to do a lot of, Susan and I did a lot of reorganizing to make that happen. And And then I discovered that a lot of organizations were getting big grants from the Winnipeg Foundation. I had not been contacted about that, so I contacted them, and lo and behold, after some discussions and after a couple of weeks, we were able, because when we start this food thing, it's like, where is the food going to come from? We've got a lot of families to take care of, and I don't know how this is going to all happen, but you know, today, as I was anticipating this phone call, I was thinking of the feeding of the 5,000, and you know, the blessings that we all receive and then share, that's the most beautiful thing. And we have been able to source the food. We've had congregations and individuals in Winnipeg that have been absolutely terrific in responding. We got a $7,000 grant from the Winnipeg Foundation, and the National Church of the Presbyterian Church in Canada also sent along $1,000. And so with donations and some of those things, that's been super, super helpful for us to be able to say, yes, we can do this and we can get the food that we need. But the meals that come in from people are extraordinary. And so we've been really, really thankful. And for Yvonne, I just want to say, one of the people that delivered food here said, I wish we were closer to Kenora so that we could deliver food there. And so what I just like to say to everybody that's in Winnipeg and can so easily bring the stuff to Winnipeg Inner City Missions, make a donation to Kenora so that they can buy the food that they need to have, and or anything, PPE, whatever, but support both. It's so important. So for us, it's been the closure of programs and then responding. How do we respond, and realizing we can help people supplement their food requirements. We needed to take care of our buildings. We needed to take care of people in the building. We've had one person that did need to go and be tested, and so that created for this past weekend a little anxiety until he got his negative test back, and so we cheered that on. And loneliness amongst the residents, most of them lost their jobs through this. And, you know, hopefully those jobs will come back. For a couple of them, it has already. We have a couple people that are out of town. One's in Ontario and one's in Alberta. And for the person in Alberta, there's been a lot of stress. He did call me and he wanted to come back, but I had to say, you know, you have to ride this out, because if he came back, he has to quarantine here. This is not a big place. It would be really hard to have somebody come now, and so that's been kind of hard, and there's a lot of stress for him. And we worry, you know, we have some former residents too that we are caring for and supporting still, and we worry about the loneliness factor, because when you put loneliness and anxiety and depression all together, it's a very tough picture. And so that's something that we really have been concerned about. So so those are the sort of the big things that we've been dealing with. The coordinating of that food now, we've got a routine. If you do want to give food, I would highly suggest you bring it on Wednesday mornings, because we do deliveries on Wednesday afternoons. And so that's been a helpful pattern to get into. And so ways to help: donations to WICAM generally would be a really great way to help. I don't know what's going to happen to donations generally to the organization this year. As we've heard in the news, charitable organizations are, it's going to be a tougher year. So as an executive director, sometimes the best one is the one that's not designated, because then we can kind of figure out what we need to support, because we've got to keep the lights on, we've got to keep the food purchased, but we've got money for that right now. We've got to pay staff, we've got to do all these other things. So sometimes just a general donation, I highly welcome. The other thing that I would really like to welcome is your prayer. It's just nice to know that people are praying for us. And, you know, when I hear that, and sometimes it sounds so trite, I'm praying for you, but I like to take that really, really and know that there are people out there praying for us. And gosh darn it, I feel like God has been answering prayers, because things have sort of unfolded for us in a very good way, not without stress, not without anxiety. Just this week, we started having staff come back 1 day a week, because I sort of need that for myself. And I also, the residents here need it. And it's been a busy couple of months. And the other thing I just want to share with you is I got a note. This came in the mail yesterday, just a card. And so often I have to say that I open up the mail and I open up the cards and the letters, and there's a check in it. This card did not have a check in it, but it was a card from somebody out in the community who heard me on CBC radio. And she just wanted to thank me for all the work that we're doing. It was just a card. And that really, it was really meaningful. And it was just so nice to receive. So one of the things that I would like to encourage you to maybe do is send a note to our staff, to them individually, with their name on the envelope on the outside. It's Crystal McKean, Brad Calder, Susan Curry, Kadena Sinclair, Margaret Mullen. I think that's it. But really, those people, how wonderful it would be for them to receive a card that just says thanks. They work really, really hard. And I'm very thankful for them. And I'm grateful to all of you for your support and for listening in. Thanks.